it is time for some social studies. Today, you're going to need your Chapter 6 packet, and you also need your textbook. Sorry, I hit the camera there. You need your textbook and a pencil. So get those items if you don't have them. Press pause and welcome back. Okay, so we are on page 3 in your packet, and before we start reading our text in Chapter 6 in the early English settlements, I want to talk a little bit about Spain. And we have been talking about push and pull factors and explorations, why people would want to leave where they're at. And I just wanted to focus in on the push and pull factors for the Spanish settlement in New Spain. Remember that basically they came to the New World and then it was just New Spain instead of Spain. So some of the different push factors, the things that they didn't like about where they were at the time that caused these people to head on out and find the Americas, see what it had to offer, is that these settlers came from a country where good land was scarce. So go ahead and fill that in. Good land was scarce, and most people had no chance of owning their own farm. And think about this. This is the 1500s. You can't run up to Kroger to get your food. You have to grow your food. So if there's not good land to farm, then there's not food, which is kind of a big deal. Okay, so that is definitely a push factor, that there was scarcity of good land. Many people from Spain were poor and had little chance of changing their situation. There wasn't a lot of room for growth and change for wealth. So they were very unhappy with that circumstance. And also, there had been a series of poor harvests. And a harvest is basically when a farmer grows crops and you go and you pick all those crops. There were a lot of poor harvests where there weren't good crops. And then the poor harvest led to famines and plagues. Severe sickness, okay? Also, the taxes were really high. So you have people that don't have a lot of money, but then have these super high taxes, and all these horrible things are going on. So these would all be push factors where people would say, you know what, I'm gonna get on that ship, I'm gonna take the risk and see what America has to offer, what the Americas have to offer. Now the pull factors, the different pull factors. So this is the place that they want to go to, what they think it has to offer. So a big draw, of course, money, so silver and gold. The silver and gold of New Spain drew settlers hoping to become wealthy. When you're coming from these circumstances, yes, hoping to become wealthy. And land was available in New Spain. There was land, so good land for farming. Also, Catholic missionaries were drawn to New Spain in hopes of converting the Native Americans to their religion. We had talked about that before in Chapter 4. All of those pull factors, things that they enjoyed or looked forward to going to this place new, that pulled them towards it. So the Spanish, I'm going to read this little part here. The Spanish began to claim the land and create colonies where they had explored. A colony is a territory controlled by another country. And that was last chapter. Soon after, this was repeated by the French, English, and Dutch. So we're going to be focusing more on English, but I brought up Spain because they're part of this too, and ended up being quite powerful, as you'll see as we read on. So far, you should have this little set filled out right here. And now we're going to open up our textbook to page 59. Open your book to page 59, please. And I'm going to read and you can follow along. So early English settlements, chapter 6, 6.1 introduction. In chapter 5, you read about 8 European explorers who claimed land in the Americas for their own countries. In this chapter, you will learn about the 3 groups that came to America from England. These people made the dangerous voyage across the Atlantic Ocean in order to create small communities or settlements. You will learn about the challenges and hardships they faced. The first English settlement was at Roanoke. Roanoke is an island off the coast of North Carolina. No one knows what happened to the people who settled there. That is why today, Roanoke is called the Lost Colony. Shortly after Roanoke, 105 Englishmen arrived in present-day Virginia. They hoped to make money finding gold and other natural riches. This group started a settlement they called Jamestown. Despite many hardships, Jamestown became the first successful English settlement in America. A few years after Jamestown was settled, 102 Englishmen arrived in the area, known as New England. They built a town called Plymouth in present-day Massachusetts. Most of these people left England seeking freedom of religion. They became known as pilgrims. Pilgrims are people who go on a religious journey. Look at the 3 English settlers to the right. As you read this chapter, think about the hardships they faced. Why did some settlements in this strange new world survive, while others didn't? So these settlers here, this first guy says, I went to Roanoke because I thought I would have a better life there. And she said, I went to Jamestown in search of gold and other riches. And he said, I went to Plymouth to find religious freedoms. So when you're looking at these, we can see some push and pull factors within. Okay, we are going to read about the first one. So go ahead and turn your page to page 60. And we're going to read about the lost settlement of Roanoke. And I think this one's definitely the most interesting because it is truly an unsolved mystery. No one really knows what happened. So we'll read this together, and then we're going to fill out the section in your packet about Roanoke. So you can follow along with me. Here we go. 6-2, we're on page 60. The lost settlement of Roanoke. In the 1500s, Spain was one of the world's most powerful nations. Spanish ships ruled the ocean and brought gold and silver from Spain's colonies in the Americas. In England, Sir Walter Raleigh believed that colonies in North America could make his country richer and more powerful too. In 1584, he sent 2 ships to explore the coast of North America. So nothing settled just yet, just going to explore. The ships landed on an island near present-day North Carolina. The sailors named the island Roanoke after the Native Americans who lived there, the Roanokes. That makes sense. When they returned to England, they told Raleigh that the island had fish, animals, fruits and vegetables, and friendly people. Sounds like a nice place to visit. The next year, Raleigh sent a group of men to start a colony. So in 1584, they're kind of exploring. The next year, in 1585, that's when he sent a group of men to start the colony. Few of the settlers were farmers. Supplies ran short because they were unable to raise food. So even though there was land to farm, they didn't know how to farm. When fighting broke out between the English and the Roanokes, the settlers gave up and returned to England. So there's some conflict here, and you can imagine why. It says that they named the place Roanoke after the people who already lived there. I think the people who already lived there probably wanted to call it their own name. So, of course, there's some conflict here. All right, now we're at 1587. So it went from 1585 was when they were trying to settle. They came back. In 1587, Raleigh sent out about 115 new settlers to Roanoke, including farmers this time and skilled workers. The settlers realized that the Roanokes would not give them food. So they sent Captain John White back to England for supplies. Unfortunately, England was fighting a war with Spain, and White's ships could not leave England again. So in 1587, they sent him, Captain John White, to go get supplies. 3 years later, White finally returned to Roanoke, where there was no sign of the settlers. Even their houses were gone. The letters Croatoan were carved on the gatepost of a ruined fort. White thought that the settlers had moved to the island of Croatoan. Before he could find out, the weather turned bad and he could not search the area. no one has ever discovered what happened to the colony. To this day, no one has discovered what happened. There are a lot of different guesses about what happened, which we'll talk more about pretty soon here. But for now, let's go ahead and fill out our sheet on Roanoke. So we are now at the bottom of page 3 here. It says early English settlements. And Roanoke, the settlement of Roanoke is the first one we're going to talk about. There's 3 altogether. We're going to talk about Roanoke as the first one. So Roanoke, that is known as the lost colony. It's gone. No one ever found it. And it is an island off the coast of, do you remember what state they said? If you said North Carolina, you are right. North Carolina. 3 attempts to settle in blank, blank, and blank. So these I'm looking for the years. And we said the first attempt was made in 1585. The second attempt was 1587. And we can call a third attempt 3 years later when Captain White came back in 1590 and saw that everyone was gone. These attempts were sponsored by Sir Walter Raleigh. I am just not writing clearly right now. There we go. Sorry, I'm writing in pen because it's a little bit darker and I want to make sure that you can see it. So hopefully you don't have scribbles all over yours and you're writing in pencil and it's nice and neat. Okay. They failed attempts to start the colony at first because they did not know how to farm. So the land was there, but they didn't know how to use it. And the Roanokes, the Native Americans who lived there, wouldn't share food with them. So if you have no food, that's a problem, right? So Captain John White was sent back to England for, what was he sent back for? Yes, supplies. He was sent back for supplies and for some people, hopefully, that knew how to farm. 3 years later, White returned, and there was no sign of the settlers. And the word Croatoan, Croatoan, in all caps, was scratched. And some things that I read say fence post, some say carved into a tree, but something along the lines of that. Something wooden. No one has ever discovered what happened to the colony. Very interesting. So we'll talk more about this soon, either tomorrow or next time I see you in class, and we'll kind of debate a little bit on what we think happened in the lost colony of Roanoke. I'll see you soon.